Okay, next up we have Magda Steele from RGB Kew, talking about Kew in the digital age.
Thank you. Yeah, I can use this. Thank you. Right, great. Wow, that is a sensitive clicker. Goodness me, a little preview of what's to come. All right, hi everyone. My name is Magda Steele. I'm one of the senior curator-botanists on the Digitization Project at Kew. So yeah, following on from that talk perfectly, this is kind of a more practical look at how we've been dealing with our digitization. So first of all, without talking too much about the same topic as Gayatri and Erin earlier, I wanted to briefly speak to Kew's historic origins. In the kind of days of Darwin and Hooker, the challenge of herbaria was kind of collecting live specimens, perhaps very wet plants, drying them, pressing them, and preserving them for a long period of time for study and research. Today, the challenge is more accessibility and data management of those specimens and ensuring that they're available for use around the world. How can we keep a record of the material we currently have? How can we track the movement of specimens within the herbarium or on loan to other institutions? And how can other people view these specimens for study? How can we connect independent databases to one another to make sure we're not duplicating efforts within the organisation? And how can we work with other organisations to improve our research? So as we've entered the digital age, it's crucial that we have a comprehensive image and database management system. Our ambitious digitization project aims to populate our integrated collections management system with data and also a custom-made image portal to produce standardized images for use the world over. So I'd like to start by giving an overview of the scale of this project. So our herbarium currently has over 7 million mounted specimens, around 330,000 of which are type specimens. In addition to this, we receive about 25,000 more new accessions each year. These are specimens from Kew expeditions, from Wakehurst Millennium Seed Bank projects, gifts, exchanges from partner institutions, etc. In terms of managing this, within the remit of our digitization project, we're doing fairly well so far. We currently have about a quarter of our 8.25 million record goal within our ICMS. And to complement this, we're creating this public-facing image platform called Digifolia, not Dogifolia, which will contain standardized images and specimen data available for use around the world. Our task now is capturing these images and inputting the data. So what exactly are we digitizing? In our current project, a lot of our herbarium specimen sheets would ideally look like this. So this is what we would consider a simple mounted herbarium specimen sheet. It's a single collection event. It's a single specimen. It's got all of the data beautifully typed up in a standardized format. It's mounted well on a clean herbarium sheet. It's got plenty of space for a barcode. The image has been captured beautifully with all the rulers and color charts. It's wonderful. But because we have such a large collection, we kind of need to move quite quickly through it. So when we have these standard images, we can capture a lot of them in a short space of time. So to enable this, we are working with a contractor called Max Communications. They are a digitization and archiving contractor, and we have nearly 50 on-site staff working with us. And they are there to kind of capture images at a really rapid rate and not focus too much on the details. So we have an in-house team that can kind of follow behind them and work out any issues that have arisen, but our max capturers have to go quite quickly. So their imaging stations are collapsible and movable, so that they can move them to the part of the collection that they are digitizing at any given time. And this also means that specimens don't have to be moved too far away from their cupboards, and therefore we limit the potential for mishandling or damage. And they flag any issues that they find along the way. A lot of our digitizers, a lot of the Max digitizers do not have background in natural history. They are kind of a more general digitization company. So they'll often have more of a kind of photography and imaging background. So it's important that we provide adequate training for them, because a lot of them don't know what a herbarium is, don't know what specimens are, how to handle them, what's important to look out for. So we need to provide adequate training for them to make sure that our collections are protected. And finally, we have remote transcription staff who transcribe the label information from the images into an online form. So some of the training we provide to Max include the importance of the collection, correct handling techniques, preferred barcode placements, whether specimens need repair, how to identify specimens which need repair or remounting. A lot of our specimens might have historic damage or potential old mold or pest issues. And we have to teach them how to identify these issues and flag them up to us. Once they've had a couple of weeks to get their iron, we provide more in-depth training, and we make sure that they are closely supervised because they have such high targets of imaging that we want to make sure that they're not missing anything along the way. Considering the high volume of material they have to handle, there is space for human error, so it's really important that we keep track of their activities. So part of this is quality assurance and spot checking. So this is quite a complex and multi-stage process, but I just wanted to provide a snapshot of what we do. So following the imaging stage, we send off the images to transcribers who kind of read the label information and enter it into an online form. And at that stage, they might also flag things like an image that's out of focus or an image that requires an additional barcode on the specimen sheet. Maybe there's multiple specimens mounted on the same sheet, etc. We also have a quality assurance team, who assess the photos for image quality, again, whether additional images are required, and whether all the data is visible. The QA, the quality assurance, is also done for the transcriptions themselves to make sure that the data is correctly entered, and that, for example, when there are multiple specimens, the correct label information is associated with the correct specimen. Any issues flagged are cascaded to the appropriate team. For example, if a specimen does require an additional image, they can flag it in this system, and then the Max team can go back into the collection and recapture the specimen required. So I showed you earlier a nice, clean, simple specimen sheet, but a lot of our collection is quite a bit more complicated than that. So here we have a multi-specimen sheet where there's lots of different specimens on one sheet. They all require a separate barcode. They'll require a separate data entry into our ICMS. We have a specimen that has something covering a large chunk of the specimen, some kind of correspondence or illustration. On the right-hand side here, we've got what we call a capsule-only specimen. So there's no plant material visible on the sheet. And we would like, ideally, for there to be some plant material visible in our images. So someone needs to go back into the collection, find this, open up the capsule, arrange the contents in such a way that's helpful for botanical research, and take an additional image. And this is quite time-consuming. Some specimens are very old, might be difficult to transcribe. The handwriting of collectors is always a fun time. We have like a big Teams chat where people post the most complicated handwriting, and we kind of all race to try and see who can figure it out and read it the best as quickly as possible. Yep, and then there's all kinds of exceptions. I could go on and on all day about exceptions. But what I would like to move on to is the work of our in-house team. As I mentioned, they follow on behind our our contractor capturers and kind of address any issues that they might have flagged. So our in-house team is very large, and there are so many different roles, and some of these I've already kind of put into one category, but there are so many different specialized roles within our team. We have digitisation officers, volunteers, imaging support staff, etc. And we've kind of developed a series of custom workflows designed to address the needs of different plant groups. I'm just going to cover some of these today, just to give you a little flavour of some of the plant groups we identified as needing special attention. And we've kind of, the way we, oh, fungarium's gone up to 2 lines, how upsetting. Yes, so what I wanted to say was that our in-house team, to keep it fresh and interesting, we kind of split it up into different rotations so that a digitizer doesn't get too bored of just looking at orchids for a year straight. They kind of get a taste of each of these different plant groups, and then they can use their different expertise and skills to kind of influence the workflows. I think that's one of the strengths of our project, is the kind of agility and flexibility, and we're constantly changing our workflows to improve them. So just quickly, wanted to show you some orchids. So orchids are one of the largest plant families, and because of that, our collection has all kinds of different information on the sheets. They're often very busy sheets, multi-specimen sheets. There's illustrations, correspondence, concealed information like I showed you earlier in the little capsules. So for these, we have to remove the plant material, arrange it in an aesthetic way so that all the important plant parts are visible, and then take images, which, as I mentioned, could be quite time consuming if things are overlapping each other. Another one of our custom rotations is palms. So palms are often stored loose in boxes, and they're usually large. You know how big a palm tree is. So to capture it, we have to have a different imaging setup where we can move the camera up and down, and the digitizer has to lay out different components of the palm in a visible way. And that, again, can take quite a lot of time, might require a bit of Photoshop and stitching things together. We have the fungarium, lest we forget. This is not quite as large as the herbarium, but we still have 1.25 million specimens here, and a lot of them, again, are quite difficult to image. So these ones are often multi-specimen sheets, lots and lots of capsules. Some of them are really nice to look at, but a lot of them are kind of concealed or have different links to other collections like slide collections, spore prints, etc. And then action team. I'll quickly cover this, but this is basically the team that goes along behind our max capturers, and they address outstanding issues such as bulky specimens, so chunky specimens that maybe didn't image very well in the flat camera setup and will need a bit of camera adjustment. Capsule-only specimens, like I was talking about earlier. They also help with laying away repaired specimens or mold-treated specimens. So, and this is just a snapshot. We have so many more different components to our team. And I'm just going to quickly talk about a few of the challenges. So 2 minutes, yes. So one of the challenges is logistics and timings, as I'm experiencing right now. We chose not to close our herbarium during the Digitization project. And as such, we're kind of competing for space with herbarium users, so all the curators, all of the visitors and researchers and students that come in. So here you can see we have a max digitization station here, and this is a researcher trying to do work. And then if a digitizer needs to collect behind this desk, they have to ask the researcher, please, can you move? I need to get my ladder in. And there's all kinds of negotiations that are required, which are very, very challenging. The solution we have to that is frequent meetings and discussions and communicating with people, which moves us on to keeping track and communication. So as well as all of our spreadsheets and emails and meetings, we find that when a visitor comes in, they don't know about any of that. They don't know what digitization is or why we're getting in their way. So we have to create new methods of communicating what's happening and why it's important for them maybe not to move things around the herbarium or change names of things. So for example, we use magnets or little paper tags on cupboards to indicate what stage of digitization that particular cupboard is at. And quickly covering pests a little bit, our Max digitizers are not entomologists, so they often send us pictures. I just tell them to send me any pictures of any bugs that they see on a herbarium sheet, and we can assess whether it's a problem or not. So for example, we've had pictures of bagworms. Here you can't really see them very well, but they're ants inside a capsule, whereas this is a live pest. And I actually think that this is one of the benefits of our digitization. This is one of the benefits of our digitization program, because we are going through our collection sheet by sheet, over 7 million specimens sheet by sheet. And it means that we can identify these like tiny pockets of pest activity that would otherwise be impossible to find in the collection. So our current progress, we're almost halfway through the project, not the presentation. Presentation is almost done. And we still have the future challenges to address of imaging bulky and carpological specimens. So I was very interested to hear some of your other talks earlier about this. And finally, wrap up, I'd like to say a huge thank you to our team. There are so many more people involved that I can fit on this slide, including our volunteers. So yeah, big thank you to everybody.
Thank you so much, Magda. That was great. Has anyone got any questions? Got time for a couple of questions. I was going to ask you what was behind your decision to go for contractors over in-house staff. I was interested in that.
Again, I wasn't involved in that decision, but we did do a value for money kind of pilot to check whether our in-house team could do the volume of images that we needed, because we have a really tight deadline within our funding. So within budget, it just wasn't possible to do all of the images in-house. This contractor was able to provide more support for us, so we kind of just helped them along the way. And yeah, we've been really happy with the results so far.
Great. And I also wondered whether when you send your transcripts out, or when you send out the images to be transcribed, whether you ever thought about crowdsourcing, whether you pay your transcribers, or what's that process?
Yeah, so the Max transcribers, they're done by a company, a third-party company called SBL overseas, and they are paid transcribers, but we also have a lot of online volunteer transcribers. I'm looking for Amy, there she is. So yeah, we use Digibol and we get a lot of transcriptions from volunteers that way as well, and they're validated, and yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you so much. That was great. Right.